This is the new Fiat 500 and it's electric. Will it become a sales hit like its internal combustion engine counterpart? I'll let you make up your own mind.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto Adolgino d'amor. Delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto Adolgino d'amor.
Don't worry, the internal combustion engine 500 is still available, although due to tougher emissions norms, it is now a so-called mild hybrid. The regular 500 is still made in Fiat's factory in Tychy, Poland, where the Stellantis group will soon start production of new Jeep and Alfa Romeo models, including EVs.
Stellantis is the former Fiat Chrysler Automobile, now joined by PSA. Today Stellantis is responsible for Abarth, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Citroën, Dodge, DS, Fiat, Fiat Professional, Jeep, Lancia, Maserati, Mopar, Opel, Peugeot, Ram and Vauxhall. And now back to the new Fiat 500, which is electric. The badge says 500e, but it should not be confused with the US-made 500e variant based on the 2007 model produced in Poland.
At first glance, the new Fiat 500 looks like another facelift of the existing model. There are new headlights, new fascia with a large 500 logo. On the side, the indicators protrude from under the bonnet, a modern take on the old round blinkers which were located behind the fenders. In the back, there are new tail lamps and a modified bumper because there is no exhaust. External dimensions have changed ever so slightly. The new 500 is 6 cm longer than the 2007 model. It is also 5 cm wider and 4 cm taller. The wheelbase is just 2 cm longer and the boot capacity remained unchanged.
Which means 185 liters, and that's still more than in the Honda E. But like in the Honda, also in the Fiat 500e, the charging cables take up at least a quarter of the boot space. That being said, Fiat offers the most stylish cable bag I've seen in an EV. Get in there.
Instead of the pretty bag, I'd rather have a separate storage for cables like a frunk, but this is where the electric motor still lives. There are no hooks for those Italian boutique shopping bags, but there is a 12-volt socket. It's tight in the back. I know that the 1950s original Fiat 500 was much smaller, and yet it had a room for 4 people, but this is not a contest how many people will fit in a small car. I'm just subjectively stating I'd rather not travel in the back here for too long. Legroom is less of a problem, but headroom is bad, even for me who's 175 centimeters tall. With the new console between the front seats, the rear passengers lost their only cup holder. If you want better access to the rear seat, because you want to put your kid in a child seat and not break your back doing it, Fiat now offers a 3+1 body style with a passenger side rear suicide door like there was on the first-gen Mini Clubman.
An interesting quirk is a lack of sound when you're locking or unlocking the car. Only the blinkers blink, but you don't hear the lock, latch or unlatch.
As soon as you get in and try to close the door, you see something's changed. The door handle is now higher and at a different angle. You'll realize it has been redesigned on a rainy day when you try to shut the door with a moist hand and your fingers will slip. Bravo!
Gone are the retro-style door handles. Now, in order to open the doors, you have buttons, and these buttons have the same design like the start button. And by the way, do these look at all familiar to you? Where do you think they came from? I'll tell you in a minute, but you can drop me a comment. So pause the video, drop me a comment. Anyway, for safety, you cannot rely only on electronics. You have to have a redundant physical door opening mechanism. So below the buttons next to the door bins are regular pull handles. Now, are these buttons really necessary? And the buttons look like they came from Mercedes. I suspect that during the Daimler-Chrysler era, both partners used the same supplier, and now the supplier called Fiat and said, "Hey, I've got a truckload of buttons, you want?" Der fragt for Mercedes Premium.
Big changes in the front. There is now a new digital cockpit, new steering wheel, new display with a new infotainment system, new console between the seats. Now I can see this is more than just a facelift. On the driver's display, there is information regarding state of charge, range, driver aids, and basic settings. You can even display an entire map. You navigate the driver screen menus using buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. On the right side, there are buttons related to adaptive cruise control. Traditionally, for FCA, now Stellantis cars, there are additional volume and skip buttons on the back side of the steering wheel where you can't see them. In the middle of the dashboard is a new screen with the new version of the infotainment system called Uconnect 5. This is where you'll find more driver aid settings, sat-nav and multimedia. The system works with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
The display is very bright, very crisp, and of course it collects dust and fingerprints just looking at it. But to me, the biggest negative is the aspect ratio. The screen is very wide and very low, which in my opinion is not optimal for sat-nav. Under the screen are physical AC buttons, and then there is a wireless charger and a USB port, and underneath it are the drive direction selector buttons. I don't like them. Like in the Hyundai Santa Fe and the new Tucson, I just don't know what I'm pushing. What's wrong with a lever or a rotary dial?
Between the dashboard and the console is a flat floor where you could put a purse, but that's a bad idea because it could slip into the driver's footwell and obstruct the pedals. Why isn't there a purse hook or something? At the bottom of the console is a fold-out cup holder. Another one is inside the storage, accessed from top of the console. Next to it are a 12-volt socket and a second USB port. On the console is a parking brake button, as well as jog dials for media volume and drive modes. Fiat offers the 500e in 2 powertrain and range variants, 3 body styles and 3 trim versions. You can choose the basic 95 horsepower motor with 24 kWh batteries, usable 21 kWh, or the 118 horsepower version with a 42 kWh battery, usable 37 kWh. For comparison, Honda E has a 35.5 kWh battery, but only 28.5 kWh are usable. Body styles are the hatchback and the cabrio, known from the regular 500, and now there is the 3+1 version I mentioned earlier. The basic powertrain is available only in the Action trim. The other two, Icon and La Prima, are reserved for the more powerful variant.
This is the 118 horsepower Icon hatchback with 220 Nm of torque, available anytime. The 0 to 100 km/h time is 9 seconds. I got 9.1 on a wet road, so there is potential for 9 or less. From 80 to 120 km/h I got about 7 seconds, and the top speed is 150 km/h, but you're not going to get very far driving this fast. Fiat claims the 500e will use 14 kWh per 100 km and achieve between 320 and up to 460 km, depending on whether it's a combined or urban cycle. Now, using simple math, you will quickly realize you would have to use 9 kWh per 100 km to get at least 400 km range. Don't forget that you're not using the entire 42 kWh, but only 37, and the rest is used for battery maintenance.
So how can you get at least 320 kilometers instead of 264, which come out when you do the math? You have to apply yourself. Firstly, you need to precondition the car before you unplug it. This means setting a departure time and the desired temperature inside. Secondly, you should use the range and Sherpa modes. Both cut performance and boost regenerative braking. Sherpa also cuts down climate control and limits your top speed to 80 km/h. Thirdly, it's best not to use climate control at all, drive only around the city, and you're still going to struggle to get the claimed range.
For the first 20-30 kilometers, I was quite optimistic as the battery indicator displayed very little charge decrease. I was hoping for 300 plus range, but then it became colder and I barely made it to the charger, having driven less than 200 kilometers. Even taking into account some time and energy use while I was filming beauty shots and the car was on, I doubt I'd get much more than 200 kilometers in temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. And when the charge drops below 15%, the battery warning light starts flashing red and it doesn't stop until you charge.
Charging from a regular home socket takes at least 15 hours, at least 4 hours from an 11 kilowatt wall box, and 35 minutes 0 to 80% of charge from an 85 kilowatt DC charger if you have one somewhere on the way. Most chargers in Poland in Q2 2021 are 50 kilowatts or less.
Handling. Well, once you turn off all the drive aids, the car is not very involving to drive. It's quick and nimble when it has to be, but you could say the same thing about one of those per-minute scooters you rent out on the town. The front collision warning system with emergency braking is oversensitive and it cuts in even in its lowest setting when I try to region brake. The system is active every time I start the car. Also, the active lane keeping assist is active every time I start the car, and like the collision warning, it also likes to be overzealous. To a point, it is almost difficult to overcome it. Not a huge deal when you're on a road with lanes marked clearly, and then it keeps you in your lane. However, on roads without clearly marked lanes, it adopts some imaginary lane and pulls me towards the middle of the road for a small overlap crash with oncoming cars.
Does the Fiat 500e have any positives? With turning radius of just 4.65 meters, it's not far behind the Honda E. Also, visibility is decent and there is an optional reversing camera, but you can't have a 360 camera like you do on the Honda E. Fiat 500e prices start at €23,500 for the basic 95 horsepower 257 km range model. The cheapest long-range hatchback starts at €29,500. This Icon test car with options costs around €35,500.
The only bright side of the electric Fiat 500e is its relatively low base price. This is where it definitely beats the Honda E. It is equally behind as far as the range is concerned, and tech, whatever you do, skip the Fiat co-driver pack. And how do you like the new Fiat 500e? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.